Hello, everyone. I am SillySquirrel.
And I am MasterRein.
And we are Revive Me Bro Games, a gaming podcast where two best friends, sometimes more, discuss cooperative games, multiplayer games, and so much more. What's up, MasterRein?
SillySquirrel, it's great to talk to you, my friend. It's good to be here on another episode of this podcast.
Today's episode, we are definitely going to lean in the so much more part of our intro here. And MasterRein, you texted me, I need to talk about Attack on Titan.
Mm-hmm.
I told you to give me a few days because I haven't watched it yet. Finally watched it.
And I was angry.
Oh my Lord. Was it? It was an event.
It was something, dude.
And MasterRein here hasn't put it. We have a chat with the rest of the R&B bros. And MasterRein keeps wanting to text about Attack on Titan, and everyone tells him to shut the F up. Because some of us haven't watched
close
it.
To spoil it for them, these slow motherfuckers.
Yeah, because some of us haven't watched it yet. And so we just agreed to say, screw it. Let's just record a pod about it. So today we're just going to literally chat about Attack on Titan finale. No structure on this one. It's just straight up. Let's just vomit what we're thinking and have some fun with it, So this is definitely a very MasterRein centric pod, just the way I like it. But before we do that, two things. MasterRein, what have you been playing lately, bro? Tell the people, what have you been up to?
Let's see. I finally finished Cyberpunk, the story.
Oh, really? Nice.
Finally finished that. Yeah, I never actually, I held off on finishing that one because I was not going to finish the game in the state that there was in. Mm-hmm. It was just poor. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I really enjoyed that. I'm playing it through again, just super on the hacking mode. Mm-hmm. That's the only skill that I'm increasing, just hacking. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like having force powers. It's kind of cool.
Yeah.
The mental force powers or whatever.
Yeah.
I started playing Sekiro literally last night.
Yeah.
I'm loving it so far. It is tough. It is unforgiving. I think it's everything that I really like in an action type game because it feels like it's very fair and unforgiving is the only way I can explain it. Because when you screw up, when you're overwhelmed and if you just kept fighting enemies and you die or whatever. There's ways to do everything. You don't have to just rush through things. You have to be patient at times. At least I haven't gotten to a boss that has completely floored me like it did in Armored Core. The Baltius, was that what it's called? There was that one flying machine. I shot 1 million missiles and I beat that thing pre-patch, but it was still super strong. But I've been loving Sekiro. It's been fun, man. Speaking of things that we're watching right now, and there's so much more. I watched Blue Eye Samurai with my wife, and it's partly the reason why I'm playing Sekiro at the moment because it just gave me that itch for more Japanese content, samurai-esque, that medieval time period. You know what I'm saying?
Okay. Cool.
Yeah. Other than that, let's see. Let me look at my repertoire. Oh, I've been playing Tears of the Kingdom actually again. I never actually beat it when it came out. How do I put this? I'd like to savor my Zelda games now. I don't like to rush through them because I've always focused on a Zelda game in the past, and it's been great. But there's so much to play now, and it's kind of like Breath of the Wild. When I beat that the first time, the only time I did it on stream, to me it was a big event. To me, it was an unforgettable moment because even I remember how I killed the last Lionel. I parried it or did this backflip and crushed it. It was amazing. I was like, oh my gosh, that was so cool. But you know what I'm saying? There was such a memorable moment that it feels like every time I get on to play Tears of the Kingdom, the memorable moments keep happening, which I love it, dude. I'm loving Tears of the Kingdom, man. It's weird how it is so much more Breath of the Wild, but it's good. It's somehow how do they know that's what we needed?
I know. It took me a while to beat Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Was very happy when I finally did. It was right before this game came out, actually. And I have the game. I just haven't gotten around it because I really played the crap out of Breath of the Wild. And I'm just going to say it wasn't my favorite Zelda game. It was great. There's a lot that I didn't like. But I did enjoy it. So I don't know. It was just it was so bittersweet for me that I'm holding off of playing Tears of the Kingdom. I'm giving it myself enough time so that when I do get to play it, that's all I will play.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I mean, like from what I have played, it's pretty good. Very very good, and it's definitely it definitely just feels like Breath of the Wild, but part two. So
it's a good upgrade because of
Mhm.
you have all the sky levels and it's the way they expanded the way you interact with the world.
Mhm.
It's different. It's still the same map, and it kind of helps because things are recognizable and you're just kind of
Yeah.
used to certain things. So you
Yeah.
don't have to having to learn new things, which is kind of weird. But it's kind of like Breath of the Wild was like the tutorial to be able to excel in Tears of the Kingdom because it was going to get complicated.
Mhm. Yeah,
Because you
for
can make your
reals.
own weapons. You know what I'm saying? Like you can basically craft your own weapons and craft your own arrows, and everything has different functions when you're crafting things, and even your mobility around the maps, it's a little different. I think that I just really hope the next Zelda game isn't like this again. I don't think it has to be. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But right now I'm like, yo, this is really interesting. I'm only gotten I don't know, maybe a 10th of the story in, so I barely know anything. But the things that I do know, it's opened up. It feels like a lot of mystery.
Yeah, I've been playing Cyberpunk a lot.
Oh, that's about to ask. Yes, what you playing?
Well, I'm playing as a stealth pistol guy. Yeah. WWE 2K23.
WWE. What's your level in Cyberpunk at the moment?
I think 29.
What have you been upgrading? I'm curious. What your stats are. How do you play? How do you play with the current build you have?
How do I play?
Right, you say pistols and guns, but do you tend to enter the battle in slow time?
So I always try a stealth run, and if that doesn't work, I have enough stats to go ham. Don't know how to explain it because I still, when people ask me, I'm like, I don't know how to answer that. Besides pistols and samurai sword.
Pistols and samurai swords.
Yeah.
It sounds like man, there was that Wii game. Remember that was you had a samurai sword in one hand and a gun in the other, and remember how the Wii controls you would swing them one around and then you would shoot with the other. It kind of reminds me of that, your build.
A little bit, yeah. It's I'm going with if I want to do stealth, I have the option, but it's not my only way of doing things. Yeah, I don't know how else to explain, to be honest. It's just it works for me, So far the build is working for me, and that's all I'm focusing on.
That makes sense.
Right, but let's get into the topic at hand, brother. So we are going to talk about Attack on Titan. This is an anime we've been watching for what? It's been 10 years, right? Came out 10 years ago.
Yeah. Where were you when Attack on Titan came out? I think I was living in Orlando at the time. I think I watched one episode and I was like, oh my God. What the? Was I with Aaron when I first watched the first episodes? Because I remember hearing about it and I was like, oh, what is this? No, I was by myself. I just saw it randomly on the internet, and it was just this giant thing, and I ate these people, and I was like, what the hell was that? And then I just had to look it up and watch the first episode, and I was just stunned.
Oh yeah. The first episode I watched during it was 2015 when I watched it. So the show had already been out for a few years, and a friend of mine told me dude, you got to watch the show. And I've been watching enough of it was on social media and people were making YouTube videos and stuff like that. And so it was definitely part of the zeitgeist of the moment. I even remember that they were that Marvel made a deal with them and they were going to do comic books based off Attack on Titan. Anyway, it felt like a big deal. And so finally I relented. I'm like, fine, I'll watch it. And just like you said, MasterRein, I was in my room. It was late afternoon. I start watching it. And holy moly, the first episode just hooked me. And what really hooked me was the end credits of that first episode.
Oh,
the end credits of the first episode when the mom gets bitten and you have the drums, taka-dun, taka-dun, taka-dun. I was just like, holy shit, this episode's insane. And the dramatic music and the amazing, beautiful score. Like, I was in, bro. I was in, you know.
Yeah.
Yes. And after that, I binged all I could at that time, which I think was right around halfway through season 2 or almost done with season 2. I think it was, yeah, like most of season 2, because I remember then a year later going to the theaters to watch like the special where they did season, was it season, I don't remember, season 1 or season 2, but they did it as a movie.
Oh, like a recap movie?
Yeah, it was pretty well done. And then at the end, they show you the first episode of the next season.
Oh, sick.
I thought that was pretty neat.
Yeah, if you're an anime fan, like you definitely know Attack on Titan. You more likely than not, right? And you're gonna get hooked if you haven't seen it yet for whatever reason. You're gonna get hooked. If you're an anime fan, you're gonna get hooked from that very first episode. And honestly, like whenever somebody's kind of like, "Oh, those animated things are for kids," show them the first episode of Attack on Titan. They will never think that again.
Nope.
There's a few enemies out there. Just show them the first episode. They'll change their mind immediately. Was it Goblin King another one of those?
Oh, it's just Goblin Slayer, yeah.
Goblin Slayer, yeah. Holy Lord.
Now that's a show that like goes, first episode is the hook, and then after that it's just your pretty much straightforward fantasy anime. Still good. But they definitely baited you.
Yeah, that's a good point, because Attack on Titan did not bait you. It only got worse from the
exactly.
It only got worse from there. So let's talk about a little bit about let's talk about the history, like the premise of the show, what the show is kind of like generally about from like the outside without going into too many spoilers. Silly, want to talk a little bit about that?
Well, basically, you have this group of people that are that live in these towns that are surrounded by these like huge walls, and the reason those walls exist is to keep out these monsters known as Titans from coming in. And so our protagonist, Eren Yeager, and his two friends, Armin and Mikasa, they look up to the Scout Regiment, which is the military regiment that goes outside the walls to do like, reconnaissance, gather data, figure out the Titans' weaknesses. But it's also the one military regiment that has the most casualties, which makes sense, right? So, I mean, when the show begins, they really do a good job of world building, like you really do. They don't complicate it. It's like, there's these people, there's this problem, but we never get to see the problem up until the very end of the episode. And that's when you realize, oh, shit, like this world sucks. And Eren gets motivated by losing his home, among other things, and he gets motivated to join the Scout Regiment when he grows up to avenge his family and recover his home
from these things that they call the Titans. And mind you, up at this point, all we know as the audience is that humanity has been decimated by the Titans. The last bastion of humanity is behind these walls. Mm-hmm. The Scout Regiment, or like the Scouts or whatever, they go behind the walls to see what they can discover from the outside, like open world. And they maybe can, if there's another civilization out there that's surviving and fighting the Titans, maybe they can make contact, right? Mm-hmm. As far as everybody knows, everybody behind the wall, that's like you're like nobody lives outside those walls, because those Titans they will get you. They're the Titans all over the place.
Yeah,
the people are trying to barely study the Titans and understand who they are. Like it's hard to progress technology wise because the Titans are so dangerous. You basically are focused on defense all the time, and it's really interesting to see how the technology has evolved for a group of people within a wall with limited knowledge of anything, because they're a small group of people. It's not they're not that many people. They're probably all in all like a million people like that we know that are behind the walls, if that. Like it's small, right? Like it's not like major cities or anything like that.
Nope, it's very small.
So whenever So whenever a Titan attacks and a Titan like is getting a town or whatever, a village, like that village is gone.
Mhm.
And it's super painful for humanity because everybody who's lost, those were farmers and teachers and whatnot. Like you just lost a bunch of opportunity because all those people could work and continue to advance society. But now it's just like it's as more attacks happen throughout history, the worse things get. And that's where we're put in a story. And as the audience, we discover things from there on out.
Mhm. Not that we're going to talk about the whole show, right? But like we're talking about the beginning because looking back, it's amazing how the very end really connects to what happens in the beginning. And that's what's
connects.
amazing about this show is that even the title of the first episode is in reference to the last episode.
Yep. So we can read the name of the titles of this episode.
That's what I'm looking for because I don't have that ready on.
I have it opened up. So the first episode is To You, 2,000 Years in the Future, The Fall of Shiganshina. Yeah. And the last episode that mirrors that one is it's not the last one. It's episode from season 4, episode 80. It's From You 2,000 Years Ago is what it's called.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And that shows you so much. And just with those names alone, what I just read, something is strange there, right?
Yeah.
Because it's episode 80, it's From You 2,000 Years Ago. Episode 1 is To You 2,000 Years in the Future.
Mm-hmm. And like
To You 2,000 Years in the Future.
And just to point out, the first thing that happens is Eren waking up behind this tree. He's like sleeping on the side of this tree or on the book. Yeah. You see Eren sleeping on this tree. Mikasa wakes him up and Mikasa asks him like, why are you crying? And then Eren just like taps his eyes and yeah, he has a tear. And later on you find out why, But I remember thinking like, that was
a good moment.
But I thought it was like, okay, like
you had a bad dream.
Yeah, you had a bad dream. Yeah. And then it's just like setting the stage for what's going to happen at the end of the first episode. But it's already
right.
The show is setting up like, nah, man, we're talking a long game,
That's such a good point, Silly, because like, yeah, you see that he's crying and you're just like, if you've already seen the episode or whatever, it's like, oh, it's because he's about to lose everything and he can feel like something's coming or whatever. But without spoiling anything.
Yeah. And the thing is, it's already planting a seed, right? Where it's like eventually when you get to the point where you find out why he's crying, it's like, oh my God, I remember that. And then you go back and you start seeing it again. And it's like, now the episode has a whole different meaning. And it's like, it's just stuff like that I think this show is just so good at. It's like, it's everywhere. Like every episode has so much you can like dissect. There's a whole YouTube channel that overanalyzes each episode. I got to find the name of the YouTube channel, but I've watched a few of them, and the guy like just goes through like 1 or 2 episodes and just like no joke. When he means overanalyze, he overanalyzes everything they say, everything that the way the director is showing the anime and how it connects to the manga and why this character does this or why does this character look this way instead of that way. It's crazy. But you know,
see, whenever I first started watching this anime, the first few seasons, and I'll describe it to somebody, it's just like, oh, it's a wild anime. It's gory, but it's got like this interesting story to it. There's a lot of mystery. It's so interesting. Now the way that I'm trying to describe it, it's a little bit different than what I would have described it years ago, because now it's just kind of like, damn, like, how do I put this in a way without spoiling anything that it's just like, we thought we knew, we didn't know. We didn't know. It was heavy. Excellent writing. And I'm sure there's a lot of stories out there that have done some similar stuff, I don't even want to mention any, because what we're going to do is we're going to, Silly and I are going to give a quick review, we'll give it like a number review of the show as an entirety, right? And then we'll talk like the real analysis of what we want to analyze. But without going too far, yeah, it's something that like I think even adults who don't watch anime can get into because of how good of a story Attack on Titan actually is. Does that make sense? It's not just like a pure anime with the anime tropes and anime things and things like that. It's like its own story. There's no filler, right? There's no filler in Attack on Titan. Maybe there's like one episode that was filler, right? But filler is an anime type thing to just get more viewing and whatnot, and that type of thing. Attack on Titan is like, it told the story. Like it made sure it was going to tell its story. So that makes sense, I guess.
Yeah, no, and we'll start talking more about like the last seasons, right? But it's like just looking back, and I think if you watch the anime now, and you just binge through it through like a weekend, I can't wait to do it. I'll be honest, I can't wait to do it.
Yeah.
Oh, it's like when you have a first taste of that like good pizza, and then you go back and it stays just as good, but now you focus on how well melted the cheese is and how the pepperoni is just nice and crisp. The first time you're just blissed. The second time it's just like you look at the details, baby.
100%, dude. 100%. Because like, and another thing too, it was wild having to wait for all the reveals. Like now people we could watch it in a weekend, whatever, and see it all and understand and be like, oh my gosh. Like, but we were watching it as it was all coming out, and we didn't know. So it's like once certain things revealed and you just think about the show, it's just like, oh my God, all those years thinking one thing, all those years,
4 seasons and 10 years worth of waiting. So fucking annoying.
It's so long.
All right, so MasterRein, like you've been dying to talk about.
Well, before we analyze it, I want to hear like your review of the entire like anime as an anime before we go into like deep, heavy spoiler analysis.
Gotcha. I think the anime is up there when it comes to must watch. Like the thing about anime is that usually animes tend to fall into tropes. You have your shonen tropes, so you like your Dragon Ball Z's, your Naruto's, your One Piece and stuff like that. Then you have like your magical girl anime, so you got your Sakura card captors, your Sailor Moons and stuff like that. And again, this is just a generalization, but like a lot of anime kind of falls into like what genre or what trope are they like going with, and then you kind of just go from there. Right, Evangelion is a subversion of the trope of Gundam. Like people were doing a lot of like mobile suit-esque shows, and then Evangelion came and not made fun of it, but just like completely deconstructed all that. Attack on Titan, as far as I know, it's an anime that's unlike anything I've ever seen. And I mean that in the good way.
Like in the best way.
Every time I think I have the anime figured out, it does something different.
Right.
Every season has something different. And granted, I mean, it is an action-packed anime and it's very thriller-esque and all that. But, it's not like your power-level shonen anime. So I think there's definitely a before and after Attack on Titan, and Attack on Titan is up there for like if you have a Mount Rushmore of animes, at least for me, it would be like you have to watch Dragon Ball Z, you have to watch Evangelion, you have to watch Attack on Titan, you have to watch for me at least Berserk, and I know there's another anime that I'm probably not mentioning and people are going to be upset. Full Metal Alchemist.
I was going to say Full Metal.
Yeah.
Full Metal to me, I think is like probably like, if I had to say what like I would have considered the best anime out there, it's Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood.
Yeah. So like Full Metal Alchemist is a good comparison where it's like it combined a lot of these different tropes into its own thing and made it its own. But it still kind of sort of follows certain tropes. And then Attack on Titan grabs what Full Metal Alchemist did and just blew it out of the water. And yeah, I think in the end of the day, someone asked me like, hey, should I watch Attack on Titan? And because it's fully finished, I'd be like, yeah, how come you haven't?
Yeah.
Like that'd be how come you haven't watched this? Go and watch it.
Yeah.
Because it is also one of the best like just stories like ever put to, on TV. Like it's a full story that you can get so much out of and talk so much about, things that we can relate to nowadays. And it's timeless. We're probably gonna rewatch it when we're in our 50s again.
It is timeless. It is timeless. Yeah. You're right, dude. This story is timeless. And like reading just reviews and Crunchyroll, like people have left, like it's very clear to see that the story is extremely profound. Like to the point where like people would say that this is an anime that is one of those historic without trying to sound cheesy, but it's kind of the truth because of just how valuable the story is and how well it built its characters, how well it built its world, how well it gaslit its audience. Right. But it's just like it did everything so well, and it didn't do like, okay, it did do this one thing that kind of pissed everybody off, where it's like this last season, part 2, the last episode, part 1, part 2, part whatever, and it's like, just end it. Stop dragging along. But they didn't throw in a lot of like extra episodes that have absolutely no reason for them to be there in the story, and they serve no purpose to advance the story. It's just the kind of like, they didn't do that. And that's so important for the type of story that these people told.
Yeah. So MasterRein, like you've been dying to talk about this last, I guess you can call it 2.
You didn't give me your number review yet.
Oh, I mean, it's a 10 out of 10. Man. It's 10 out of 10.
I was going to say.
It's a 10 out of 10. The ending for me was fantastic. It answered most of my questions. It left with a good note. It was a good ending. My wife and I talked about it for like 2 days. We've watched a lot of shows lately. And usually it's like, did you like that? Yeah, it was fine. Yeah, no, it was pretty cool. But now Attack on Titan, I'm like, we kept coming back to it. Like, honey, what'd you think about this? What'd you think about that? Yeah, it was so good. This and that. Like that's not a.
It's not an everyday anime that does that.
Yeah, exactly. So
they don't come around very often. That just leave you so impacted. Definitely a 10 out of 10. And for anybody who would like, oh, should I watch this one with my parents? They want to try to watch an anime. Yeah. Yeah. It's super heavy. It's super mature. It's not a kid's show by any means. So,
yeah, no, not at all.
Yeah, I just want to make sure we establish that this is not just like a 8 out of 10, a 9 out of 10. No, this is a legendary 10 out of 10. Like 100%. They nailed it. The music. The music, the art. You know what I'm saying? The music is so good. So good. But anyways, yeah, I'm down to get into the spoiler analysis and just all that.
Please, MasterRein, it's what I've been dying to hear from you.
One thing that like whenever we were talking about like the anime leading up to the last seasons and the last episodes, you were talking about how like, oh, it would be fun to do like rewatch everything and do like a music video with was it a Green Day song? No.
Yeah. Green Day song. I'm still planning on doing it. I just gotta. It's gonna take a while.
Right. And what was it? What was it? Boulevard of Broken Dreams? Is that what it was?
No. It was Jesus of Suburbia.
That's a different Jesus of Suburbia. Oh yeah. That's what it was. Anyways, I definitely would be super curious, like what scenes you're going to use whenever you do that, because like you're going to be doing things like, I don't know, using scenes with like the verses that you're hearing in a song that are just super like, they're gonna have a theme to what you're putting. You're not just gonna do like a random music video, in my opinion. See or no?
No, of course I'll put some thought into it, but yeah, like what does this have to do with? How does this connect to your view of the whole show?
No, because I wanted to ask, like, what would, like, before I start talking too much, I just wanted to know, like, what kind of inspired, like, what was some like the words from the song that kind of made you feel like, oh, I should do this? Like, what kind of like hit that?
Okay. It's a good question. So Jesus of Suburbia is definitely, it's one of my favorite songs, not to mention one of my favorite music videos ever made. So how the last 2 episodes, they're very long, and then prior to that, you had like the final season, part 1, part 2, part 3, or whatever the fuck. And it was mostly when Eren was. Spoiler alert, by the way, if you haven't watched the anime, please, you've been warned multiple times. Yeah. You've been warned multiple times. So 3, 2, 1. So the part where Eren just basically betrays Armin and Mikasa and the rest, and you figure out that he has like his own like followers and that he's planning on something horrible. I kind of realized like, wow, like this guy completely like changed, like all of a sudden he's the bad guy,
And he's the protagonist. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly. And so like,
and now he's like the bad guy.
So the thing is, to answer your question, there's a few lines that kind of hit me with, oh my God, I should make a video with Attack on Titan. It was actually the first few lines. It's I'm the son of rage and love, the Jesus of suburbia, the Bible of none of the above. I mean, that first line, I'm the son of rage and love. It's like, that describes Eren. Like straight up.
Mm-hmm.
And then it goes, no one has ever died for my sins in hell, as far as I can tell, at least the ones I got away with. It's, I don't know, like a lot of these lines I felt like connected with Eren in terms of how he would see the world. If you go a little more into like the song, there's another line that says home is where your heart is, but what a shame, because everyone's heart doesn't beat the same. It's beating out of time. And I just thought about like Eren doing the whole, heart and hand sign with the rest of his friends. But like at the end of the day, it's like, even though he lost his home, like his new home became his crew, But then everyone's heart doesn't beat the same. It's like, well, we do know that there are traitors among this crew. So even though they're all quote unquote united under this one banner, in reality, they all have different motives, especially the ones that will eventually betray Eren and the scouts, So It's like there's a lot of just stuff like that it just the more I thought about it, the more I thought of like, this clearly just talks about Eren's mindset. But I mean, we're talking about this. This is going to take me probably a few years because I got to find the time, download the footage, find the footage, put it together. Like this is like long term. But
that's what I was curious to kind of know, like what you were like. What was it that kind of like sparked that inspiration? You know what I mean? Like, you know what I'm saying? That it's like, oh, you heard that song and you're watching a show and you're like, oh man, that kind of reminds me of this.
Well, also, I mean, it's the whole song. It's like the song's about a guy who, like a disgruntled young man that has been told lies all of his life and decides to do something about it, like either by leaving or confronting those that have been telling him these lies. And I mean, there's a whole other line that says, everyone's so foolish, born and raised by hypocrites, hearts recycled but never saved, from the cradle to the grave. We are the kids of war and peace. We are the stories and disciples of the Jesus of suburbia. But it's like, how does that not describe Attack on Titan?
What's going on in the show? Yo, totally. Because it's funny that, like, because I haven't heard that song in a really long time.
Yeah.
I was talking to you and I had sent you a text message about Pink Floyd's The Wall. The thing is, I don't know if if you watched like any like sort of like short analysis on it. The thing is that like now that I'm hearing what sparked your connection from that song to Attack on Titan, to me it's the same thing. To me it's the same thing that's making that connection for Pink Floyd's The Wall to Attack on Titan. And the reason, like one of the things that like it just hits me so hard. It's just like, not only is there this giant wall throughout that's very prominent throughout the majority of the show, right?
Yeah.
The wall being the wall of Shinganshina, which gets destroyed, and then another wall throughout that's supposed to like protect everybody that they're all protecting or whatever. And at some point, they all then realize that the walls are all made of titans. And when they realize that, like, I remember watching it, like, and I just remember hearing in the back of my head, another brick in the wall, down, 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 down. but like straight up. Like I felt like the whole point of like Pink Floyd's The Wall, it's like this cycle of this kid who lost his father in his war, raised by his mother, raised in a society that kind of like treated him a little bit like crap or whatever, and it doesn't really grow up well, has a lot of issues throughout life, ends up becoming like it's like very lonely, but like has some sort of like pull, and it's a kind of just depicting how easy it is for somebody in society to just kind of like go into the dark side and basically use their power for whatever way that they want. Not only that, but also internally the steps that it takes for somebody to become a villain. Right. Mm-hmm. Because Aaron, and this is what's so cool about like the show, because we got to watch and debate about this for a long time, was Aaron Yeager justified in what he did? You know what I'm saying? Was Aaron Yeager justified at all in what he was doing? At all. Right. And in my opinion, what we were seeing was what you were talking about in that song, and also what I'm talking about in Pink Floyd's The Wall, which is these societal things in which people grow up in that cause them to either lash shot or whatever. It may not be their fault, but as they grow up in these things and it molds them and it's changing them, it's almost like, of course this was going to happen. Of course this kid was going to turn into that. Of course those things were going to happen. Aaron Yeager watched his mom get eaten in front of him, eaten, blood everywhere. First episode, his mother, right? His mother, and like, it's just like, that was hard. Yeah. That was hard to watch. That was really, that was one of those things that's like the very first get-go. That's part of like that first episode is really trying to rip your heart out with that, in a way, right? And like, you just see like the town get decimated, right? But then you come to find out that through the cycles of the history of these people, that it was actually Aaron who made sure his mom got eaten by that titan.
Which is so fucked up. One of the last few like lines in the show, and you find out it was him, and it's like Armin has to stop him. And I'm like, all right, like, bro, shut your mouth, please. I don't want to know. Like,
I don't want to know. And there's how many more things could Aaron have told us that would have just broken our hearts even more to know that this kid, like, it was almost like he had no choice but to become so bad. You get what I'm saying? That is not at all the theme I was going to be thinking was going to be happening in this anime when I first started watching it in those first few seasons. Not at all. I 100% thought it was going to be about all these kids. They're going to find a way to protect their city and their town and everything. Instead, especially with the last episode, you get this whole like Jewish Nazi sort of like vibe, right? Mm-hmm. Like the Jews being like attacked by the Nazis, but it's not just that, but you get that so heavy in the very last episode too, because there's like a Schindler's List moment, dude.
Yeah,
like these titans are coming, about to like just stampede like over all these people. These people are falling off a cliff because it's like they have nowhere else to go on their little island, and like people, and like this mom like is about to fall off the cliff. Mm-hmm. But on the other side, there's a bunch of stampeding titans coming toward them. But she has like this kid in this red blanket, and she gives the kid to like this guy. The guy catches the kid, and they try to like save this kid. And everything is black and white. Everything is black and white. The titan's coming. Everybody's black and white except for the blanket around this kid, which is red. And that is definitely 100% a call to Schindler's List. When there was that scene when they were in the town and the Nazis were rounding up people, and there was like the one little girl with the red dress just walking around, and no one's paying attention to her or whatever, something like that. But everything is black and white. Everything is bleak and black and white except for her little red dress. And like I'm like in the back of my head, that has to be meaningful to that. Like what? Why else do that? That has to be that. That has to be that. Mm. And this whole time, like we get the Eldians and the Marlians. The Eldians are like the race of Aaron and everybody within the walls.
Yep.
The Marlians are like this. Basically, the Marlians are like, you can call it like America, or like the biggest country outside of like in the real world, or the Germans, just whatever the biggest, most powerful country is at the time of the world. That's who they are, the Marlians.
Actually, yeah, forget that I said Germans. It's like I like what you're doing right now. It's like, yeah, like just the Marlians are just the big, and then the Eldians are the ones being oppressed, basically.
But the aliens got oppressed because the aliens are very powerful. Because one of the twists is in the show that's like, it blows my mind that they had so many freaking twists to begin with. But one of the big ones was that these Titans are actually Eldians transformed, and every Eldian in their DNA has some weird ability that like they have this connection to some weird Titan power. However, when they become Titans, they have no recollection of anything, of anybody, of anything. They're just mindless zombies, basically just eating everything, right? But then there's this weird thing that happens with that, even with that, and like how all the aliens are connected through this like consciousness dimension, right? It gets crazy. And the reason why the Eldians are on this little like area and they all thought that they were all within these walls was because the rest of the world was so terrified of them.
Yeah.
Basically, the Eldians got forced to go into this little town, and the king of them had used their power, because they have a power, there's weird connection between all of them, to erase all their memories. So they thought that they were stuck behind the wall. So the rest of the world wouldn't try to come after them. But the problem is that the rest of the world will be decimated if the Eldians ever decided to stand up. And that terrifies the rest of the world. Mm-hmm. But then the rest of the world, especially this main country, Marlia, uses the Titan power as their own power and enslaves every single Eldian to make sure that they can control this power, so they, like you said, can remain the biggest of the world. And so every other city or nation that they are warring with does not have the Titan power, right? But Marlian does, because they have subjugated and enslaved the Eldians, which is like, that is not at all the story we thought. We get that story in the later seasons, right? That is not at all we thought was going to happen. And then they show you how like Aaron's dad had come from Marlia, from across the sea, to over and all this stuff. And there's like a verse on like Pink Floyd of like, "Daddy, they sent you across the sea," because in the Pink Floyd thing, the kid lost his dad to this war like early on in his life. Like Aaron Yeager lost his dad to the same war as well, because we find out that Aaron Yeager's dad needed to be eaten by Aaron, therefore being another casualty in this entire war, being another thing that has been fucking up Aaron his entire ever since that happened, has been fucking up his mental health, right? Because like his dad died, and then he realizes that he ate his dad, and like, why did he have to do that? And it's just like, there's all these things that like one after another that are just like heavy and weighing on these people.
But then what makes things worse is that you find out that Aaron is the one who told his dad to make him into a Titan so he can eat it. It's so crazy.
And that's the mind fuck. That's the mind fuck at all. That's the mind fuck at all. It's just like, oh my God. So who's behind all of this then? Like from the very get-go, like the walls being destroyed at the very beginning is Aaron's fault? In a very strong way, yes. Actually,
but he lets it happen because he needed it to happen so that all this other stuff can happen. It's a mind fuck. There's all these paradoxes, but it's a paradox that makes sense only when you watch everything as a whole. If you try to go back and if you start thinking back and like try to piece together, like maybe parts won't make sense. But once you understand that the way time works in this universe is not necessarily the same way we think of time. Like for Aaron, time is a flat circle instead of a stream of. Instead of a river, it's a flat circle. That's the best example. It's
like a lake for him. He like drifts. He can drift within time. Because so here's one of the spoiler parts. His Titan is called the Attack Titan. One of the abilities of Attack Titan is that the user who's in the future can send his memories back to past Attack Titan users, right? Not the other way around. It's like the future can send memories to the past, which makes it feel like these Attack Titans are having visions of the future, which they are. But those visions have been selected by the user of the Attack Titan of the future, which is kind of like, oh, that means that the visions that people are having in the past they're not 100% sure whether they're getting all the information or not. And they never were. Yeah. They never were. Right. But through generations and generations of Attack Titans, it was essentially precisely planned by Aaron through memories in order to get the outcome that had to happen, which is like, oh my God. But within the world building of this world, everything that has happened, it's just like, how did it lead up for a for this boy, because Aaron, I don't think ever becomes older than like 22 or 21 or whatever, or 20 even. Like, how does it that this boy
don't
is
remember,
able
but yeah.
to, you're right, like something young, but this boy he becomes so capable to inflict so much harm in the world, but because of all of the history it has led up, it's not possible for this to happen. Where did this come from? It started, and the show even tells us like where the powers of the Titans started, which is another thing that's like how ballsy for them to explain the entire power. Because a lot of times, side note, a lot of times like it's more important to keep the mystery of some powers instead of like explain it all, like in Star Wars with the midichlorians.
yeah. And then they say they don't mention it ever again. Yeah. Right. Anyway,
Attack on Titan explained it. Maybe it explained where there's this bug creature centipede power. It's like an alien. Maybe it doesn't explain that too much, but they explained.
They explained that it's life itself. Like it's life. Weird. It's this entity that is just trying to survive. It's like a symbol of sorts of what the human, like not the human spirit, but like the will to survive that exists on every living thing, like plants, animals, and humans, right? And so it's all condensed into this one being that grants people these powers, and then
right.
And we haven't even talked about how, like, if you want to look at it, the whole show has many themes, but the biggest theme that it's trying to convey is that humanity equals war. Like, there's always going to be war as long as there's humans,
Yes.
And
big time.
It ends with that note, and and it's funny because it's like, again, it's humans, what they're trying to do is multiply and survive, but during that natural desire to like survive, do we end up killing each other, and Aaron ends up doing everything that he's doing to give his people a chance. He does, at the end of the day, he does keep his promise of ending the Titans, because as far as we know, after this, there's no more Titans in human history.
Right.
But he also allows his people and his world, like it buys them time, buys them time to like get ready to become basically the dominant country in the world, and kind of gives them a head start so that they are never the ones oppressed, so that they are the ones that can have quote unquote freedom. And
the rest of the world got reduced to the same population that was on the island.
Yeah. So it's like, oof, like that's not a lot of people,
That's not a lot of people.
How many did he say he killed? 88%?
80% of the world population. That's not Eldian. 80%.
Just think of that, right? Like, what does that look like? But anyway, you have an incredible story of just ignorance, of empathy, apathy, loyalties, and then love, and like it just, and like the show does so much to like, it doesn't just fall into one thing, like you can really dive into the meaning of Aaron and Mikasa's relationship, the whole Eldians versus Marlians, and what does that look like? Like you said, like it looks like Germany and the Jews, or America and whatever country they invaded, or right now Palestine and Israel. Like, and the funny thing, it's not a coincidence that when you first watch the show and you find out more about the Eldians and the Marlians, that you start seeing like, oh yeah, this is very much Nazis and Jews, But in the end, like, take that away, it's the oppressor and the oppressed.
Right.
And then the need of the oppressed to rebel against the oppressor.
Here's the thing. Here's a very important thing. Like, sorry to kind of cut you off. Like the Eldians, like at the very past when everything started, they were not that powerful. And in fact, they were the oppressed.
Yeah, and like
everything started.
And then if you think like the monsters, the Titans were a form of oppressors to the people of Eldia and Paradise Island. Like, these huge human-like monsters that are extremely terrifying are the ones not allowing these humans to prosper, so to speak, right? And so he goes from that to the Marleyans to like the king and the first Titan. What was his name? Ymir.
Like, so here's a quick history recap to kind of help with everything. So back in the day, we could call it like 1,000 years before Aaron. I don't know how long it was. There was the Eldians. They were there. They were like medieval kingdom or whatever. There was this king. He had this maid helper that kind of had fallen in love with him or whatever. But this kingdom has, because it's humanity, it's war. They were always struggling with war around their surrounding countries or whatever, and they weren't ever like that strong. Something happened where like the king's like handmaid or one of his like concubines or whatever, whoever she was exactly, she ended up like just releasing some pigs. Like she wanted to let a pig go and gave it some freedom. And she ended up doing that. And then the king got really pissed off. Was like, who did that? Finds out it was Ymir and like, I think wanted to like kill her or something like that. So she like runs away.
Yeah, she gets hunted. Yeah.
She gets hunted, right? And she's like realizing that she's being hunted by the king that she loves. And she actually loves this king. Super sad. Her heart is breaking. Ends up finding a weird tree, falls in its hole in this tree. And the tree has like water in the inside. And she finds that being that like is full of life energy. And her spinal cord is attached to this being. And all of a sudden she is imbued with the Titan power. Bam, right there, right? And she essentially defends herself from these hunters, right? And she's been given freedom at this point, freedom to do whatever she wants. However, she gives all of it to her king that she's in love with, right? And this king notices that, and he does not love her back. He realizes the possibility for power. So he pretends to love her, gets her pregnant, and then he goes on and like uses her to basically his wife, because he marries her, goes on and uses her as his weapon to go and colonize and go and conquer kingdoms. So that went on for a really long time. Then there, he realized, because he was trying to have kids and continue on, because he was like, oh my God, my wife is a monster. I want to have more monsters to make more power. He makes her have kids, but the kids don't have the power. But then he realizes, okay, these kids, the power needs to happen somehow. So what do? They eat their mom. He feeds.
It's crazy.
He feeds. It's cruel, dude. It is so cruel. And that cycle of cruelty, he creates new Titans from that. And then from there, this like people continue eating them, eat like each other. And this Titan power is passed on and passed on and passed on, because one Eldian will eat another Eldian that has Titan powers and they can control the power. And that's how, for generations, that's how these Titan powers have been passed on, from Eldians consuming other aliens. Cruelty from the get-go, right? So now we get to Eren Yeager, right? And he realizes all this cruelty on one end, and even all the people who want to, because there's Eldians who want to stop the Titan powers, like just by, canceling it out. That way they'll find peace, hopefully. But Eren feels like, no, the rest of the world won't ever give Eldia and in the people within the wall of the Paradise Island, they won't ever give the peace that we want, because they're always going to fear us, because they're always going to think that this Titan power is on the back. So we have to do something to where they're going to learn their lesson, because look how the rest of the world has been so cruel to us and whatnot. The cycle of cruelty continuing on. And then even Eren Yeager himself, it's just kind of like, he has it in his back of his head that you either fight or die. You're either killed or you have to kill or be killed, right? Yep. That's the whole mentality. That's it. And if that's the mentality, and if that's basically the what's going to determine your future, then what Eren did is completely justified, because he had been given this opportunity and he had to do it. It's almost justified in the most horrible way, but it's I hate to say that it's justified, but it's a lot of people still look at it and it's just but look what Eren did. He managed to get rid of the Titans. He managed to bring peace to Paradis, and at least from what we could see in the credits, there seemed to be some peace for some amount of time. But what's interesting with those end credits things, and this is about the cycle of cruelty and the cycle of war as well. Yeah. You see his friends grow old around his grave, and they all pass around the tree from the very beginning of the first episode. His friends pass. The city behind them, behind the walls, they start growing. It grows a little bit. The towns and the villages grow, and then all of a sudden, there's the whole town's on fire. The whole city, it's got fire, just smoke, black smoke coming from areas. And then after that, a civilization explosion. Very interesting that they had a conflict and then civilization exploded. It's probably a civil war. You get what I'm saying? They had probably had a civil war. They had a new kingdom, a new political system got established, and it just exploded from there. Technology exploded. They started building skyscrapers. It was like a utopia society. They started getting really technologically advanced. It became like cyberpunk, and all of a sudden war. And it seemed like there was a plane gonna go hit a freaking building. You know what I'm saying? And it got shot out of the sky. That was a total 9/11 like callback.
And that was like what the fuck?
That was like, whoa, but it's a complete, saying that's like, this is war. This is a cycle of war. Like, look at where it's at now, right? Humanity has completely forgotten that Titans existed. If people talk about it, it's a fairy tale. You know what I'm saying? Completely forgotten about all of that. And now they're on a new thing. And it's almost like heartbreaking. And it's just like, damn, everything we just saw, people getting eaten by these monsters. And this guy trampling 80% of the world, and humanity still goes to that up until they basically cause nuclear apocalypse. And what's even like interesting about like how fast humanity goes back to being like, it's that cycle of war.
Yeah.
When in the show, when we know that Eren Yeager has been stopped and the Titan powers is done, we know it's done, right? The Marlians who had their guns still point their guns at these now completely defenseless Eldians and are just like, stand back, we're going to shoot you guys. Like, they freaking out still. It's like immediately, they had just seen those Eldians fight for these Marlians' lives, and those Marlians were immediately just like, okay, how can we trust you? Get down, or whatever. It's like,
which is like, what do you mean? Yeah, we just saved you.
They just saved y'all. But that's, it's like, he's got the gun and he's got the power. And that's a sad truth that sometimes the person with the gun and a person with more power isn't the person who's right. You know what I'm saying?
Sometimes all it takes is a little, and that's the cool part is that right after that happens, Armin's the one who comes up and kind of tells him like, we're good, and
he's like, if I would have done it already, we're done.
Yeah, exactly. But not just that. It's like, it's two important things happen. One, there's communication, right? Armin stands up and communicates with this general that has the power and really tries to reach out for the general to empathize with them. It's like, I mean, yes, he's telling them like, if we wanted to, you'd be dead. But he's not saying that just because. He's saying that it's like, right now, you're the ones that are putting us in danger. Well, and you also have to think too, like the oppressor was scared because of what the Eldians could do. Right. So it made sense why all of a sudden they're still distrustful because they just saw a ton of, an Eldian basically wipe the whole world. So like, why would they still trust these people? And so there had to be a conversation where it's like, we're not that guy. We killed them because we're not like that guy. Give us a chance. So you had to communicate. And that was the cool thing about it, where it's like all conflict stems down to basically giving in or like meeting people in the middle. Sacrifice.
Yeah.
It comes down to sacrifice. And it's like Armin basically went ahead and said, ton of our people just died just to save your ass. We no longer have the power to fight you. We're asking you, please don't do this because we can't do anything else about it. Like their backs are on the wall. And the general says, okay, cool,
And that's, at the end of the day, that's what Eren Yeager was hoping for. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, kinda, yeah.
He really did all of that. He really trampled so many people so that like at some point, the rest of the world would see like his friend group as like the ones who saved the whole world. So that they would be completely respected. And it's like he really, because like he was having those conversations with Armin and would erase Armin's memory right after that he had those conversations, like, within the consciousness verse or whatever. And but it was basically like Eren being like, listen, I have to go forward with this. But please stop me. Like, please stop me. Like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to be doing this. Like, it's like, but kid, but you can stop. But that's the thing about Eren Yeager. Like the way he is and the way he grew up does not allow him to stop. He has to go. right? He has to. It's like in his head. It's like either I'm right and I defeat everybody, or my friends are right and they defeat me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. He had to do what he had to do. And like there's been a few animes and even stories that do that, where it's like I must become the villain in order to be the good guy type of stuff. But in this case, it made sense because at that point, the character of Eren made sense. He went from being someone who wanted to save everybody to all of a sudden just saving his people to.
I mean, he did it. He saved.
I mean, he did. Yeah. I was just like, now that I think of it, it's like he did. And it's like he wanted to avenge his family and everything that's happened against all these Titans. And then he gets betrayed. So he starts to trust people less and less to the point where it's like the only people he really cares for are the people that throughout all the shit have been by his side. And at the end of the day, that's what he does, even though he has to put his friends in a very tight spot where it's like, you have to kill me. He knows that, like you said, at the end of the day, because they had to make that sacrifice, it gives them the ammunition to be the heroes, to talk, to make sure that people don't fight them ever again, at least in their lifetime.
Right. And in a weird way, like what happened was Ymir being saved because Ymir had for generations, for however long it was, Ymir had been stuck. Her consciousness, her soul, stuck creating Titans.
Yeah,
fighting for this king's will that she didn't have to fight for her anymore. And then Eren, like at some point, like he like is like, you have a decision, like you're free, like you can be free, Ymir. Like towards the last season, and like you can kind of see Ymir's eyes come back, and she is crying because she realized like all this time, and in a weird way, like Ymir is the most important character.
Yeah.
Because the Titan power really does revolve completely around her. Like completely.
Yeah.
And Eren Yeager is just the tool that became her salvation. Because like it's so sad to say that like 80% of the world was sacrificed so that this one girl could be like saved from like eternal prison that she had put herself in because of her love.
Yeah.
Right? But again, it's just that's the cruelty of the world that humanity likes to make for itself. And it was so important for Ymir to have been recognized. And Eren was the only one who actually did that. So this genocidal kid, right, is the only one who could have noticed that this girl was enslaved in eternally and wanted to do something about it.
Yeah.
Like it causes internal, like an internal struggle, like an internal like debate. Like is he in the right for doing what he did? And like I think even he's kind of feels like no. Even Eren said I have to do it. Like it's been decided or something like that. So I don't know whether I don't maybe I have to rewatch the ending to kind of have a better idea of like whether I think Eren was right or not. But or whether Eren thinks he was completely in the right, or I don't know how to put that in another way. But that's to me like what is so important about this show was it really hits hard and exactly what Silly was saying, the cycles of war and how humanity goes back to war over and over and over. Just like the hard thing to do would be what Armin did, right? Would be to stand up powerless and say, hey, we're not your enemy, don't fight us. Like I'm standing here like in front of your gun, willing to get shot. You have the power. Let's find peace. And for the other side, who's also holding the weapon to be like, okay, we're chilling, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's the hard thing to do, right? Because for one end, you have to be completely defenseless and vulnerable and, put your word out there for the truth. And on the other end, you have to have all the power and then put said power down and become vulnerable. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's not easy. That's not easy.
God.
And
yeah.
Think about the United States being like, yeah, we're gonna pull back in the military and become vulnerable. Absolutely not. You know what I'm saying? That's why we don't have healthcare.
Oh no, we're gonna get demonetized.
Oh, whoopsies. But But legit though, like there's the cycle of war today, and we're seeing like conflict rise up. You know what I'm saying? And not to be all like, oh, Israel and whatever, blah 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 blah. But they are technologically powerful in the current encounter that they're in. One side is, who is being oppressed, right? Like who is oppressed? Like they're both being oppressed and they're both not. You know what I'm saying?
In this case, you have just to put it in more realistic terms, at least the way I think of it. It's like in the current conflict that we're all seeing in our social medias and in the news, there's no such thing as a fair fight, so to speak, especially in war.
Right. That's what it feels like. And it kind of feels like, it's hard to see it sometimes, you know what I'm saying? But it's war.
Yeah. But what we're getting at is that the show, I think, years from now will resonate to all of us, because of all these very universal themes.
Yes,
and like
exactly.
we'll come back to. That's why like we tend to watch Dragon Ball, or we tend to watch Full Metal Alchemist, because the themes of the show.
Oh, for me, it's Last Airbender.
Yeah, or like Airbender, where it's like the themes of those shows transcend the show itself, and then when you watch it, you'll always see something different. And I think this time around, when we start watching Attack on Titan again, we're going to start seeing different things. And then we'll watch it 10 years later and we'll see different things. And it's go watch this show, man. Like, I mean, we can keep talking about this for hours, but that finale was just great. It was great. I loved it.
I think a lot of people are hating on it, but I think it was great. I completely agree. I think it was great.
It's like, why? Like, and some of the stuff people mention is just like, you're just hate watching the hate watch.
Right.
If you don't like it, stop watching it, but I liked it. It made sense to me in terms of the story it's trying to tell.
Yep,
and
exactly.
like, I don't need it to, like, how many shows lately have had really shitty finales? And yet you have one show here that ends well. I'm not saying it ends the way you want it to end. It ends well. Like there's a finale to it. Things are done. Things are wrapped. Maybe you wanted to see Mikasa and Eren hook up, or Eren's to be saved, or you wanted to find out if Eren and Historia really did get together, blah, blah, blah. Like, I know there's all these other questions that weren't necessarily unanswered, but it doesn't matter.
They don't exactly.
They don't matter.
Exactly.
Because at the end of the day, like, the main story was Eren liberating his people, and he did, and that's the end of it. And then from there on, it shows you that this never-ending cycle of war and violence. But you know what? The fact that we got to see Mikasa get buried at an old age should tell you everything. She did not die being beheaded. She didn't die by getting eaten by a Titan. She died because she got old, and that is a luxury.
Right. I think whatever hole we think might be like within the storytelling, I think the way it ended should help you analyze whatever hole you think might be there, that it's really not there. And it's really more of like a figment of your imagination. I don't know how else to put it, because like, I don't know, like I feel like the way that the story wrapped itself up was, it may not, like, it's kind of like you said, it may not be what you wanted, but it's what it had to be. It's just what it had to be. It was rough, dude. Like what? Like we're gonna get like the most happy ending. I think the ending was as happy as it could possibly be, considering all the consequences.
Yeah, it actually was a happy ending.
It actually was like exactly. Like when we're gonna get Eren back, like it would have been more of a stretch to get Eren back, dude. Eren had to be sacrificed. That's what Eren set up for himself, and it's sad. Period. You know what I'm saying? Oh, like I hated it. That hate right there. Remember it next time you see war happen, because that's exactly what you should be thinking about. Like, I hate war. You know what I'm saying? I hate these struggles that people are having to go through, because how much you hated having to see Eren or oh my God, we didn't get like Jean Costa, or we didn't get Eren and whatever, and we don't know what. That's all because of what people continuously go back to, which is wanting to like conquer and fight and xenophobia and borders and all that kind of stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But there's also times in which war has just been somebody's ego to gain more power. And that's definitely what happened with King Fritz for the longest time. That's definitely what was doing with the Marlians for the longest time, using the Titan power.
Yeah.
That's where, like, if you hate the ending, you have to understand that what you really hate is how shit war is.
Also, like, if I can be so bold, just get over yourself. You know, you hate it. Why don't you just take your moment, ask yourself why, and then ask yourself why again? You know, because it's just bullshit. I didn't like it. Well, why? Because I didn't like it. Well, that doesn't mean shit. Like, okay, I sometimes don't like to work out, but I still have to do it. Just because you don't like something doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. It's like find a reason why you don't like it. And if it's just surface level stuff, like, it's just like, then stop wasting your time with media. Like,
because, you know, here's an example. What if One Piece? What if the One Piece that Luffy and the gang have been searching for this one time really was the journey and the friendship? What if that's what we get at the end of the show, right?
Oh my God, I'd be so annoyed.
I would be so annoyed, right?
But then it makes sense.
But then it makes sense because, like, now also look at how epic Luffy and his friends have become. Look what they did. They're probably going to topple the world government. You know what I'm saying? They're probably going to achieve everything they want to achieve. And isn't that the treasure in itself, right? Getting to do all that, right? That would be so cheesy, but it's like, but at least that is what caused this incredible 1,000+ anime story. You know what I'm saying? It's been a great story. Everybody who watches it falls in love with it, and for good reason. It's a fun anime. You know what I'm saying? But what if that anime did that? What if the One Piece was just that, right? And it was as simple as that. I think people would be pissed. You know what I'm saying? But it would make sense, in my opinion. I kind of hope it's not just that.
Yeah, but whatever. Go out there and be somebody.
So I just want to kind of like just say this one more time. Like, if you ever listen to Pink Floyd's The Wall and think about Eren Yeager's story and the story of the Eldians in the Cycles of War, I think these things fit so well together. Not only is there's these walls that have to be toppled, and there's societal walls and there's mental walls, right? And that's kind of what the Pink Floyd's album The Wall kind of goes into. The album itself is a loop. The last thing on the last part of the record says some like words, and that sentence is completed. Like, as soon as the needle hits, the first words that are spoken completely link to the very end of the album. So it's a complete loop, the album, right? Complete loop, right? But it's also trying to tell you that these are the cycles of that happen. They're very clear cycles. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I think Attack on Titan at the very end of it, showing us how everything went back to war anyways, it just completely showed us in 30 seconds the cycles of war, the same cycles that caused all of Attack on Titan story to happen. That same thing was depicted in a few 30 seconds, 40 seconds to a minute, showing how humanity got technologically advanced, and then boom, right back to warfare up until they all got Titan level powers that could decimate the world. And guess what they did? They did it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, they did.
And that's kind of like, and that's not, is that not how we all feel like nowadays? It's like, oh, Putin supposedly is gonna like die soon. Apparently he's got his hand on like the nuclear like triggers. He's just gonna launch nukes before he dies or whatever. And then like the US is definitely gonna retaliate, and they're all gonna launch nukes, and it's gonna be, nuclear war everywhere, and bombs are just gonna be blowing around cities and all. Like, that isn't that what we kind of feel like is kind of like where we're at nowadays, right? I mean, obviously the people who are in charge of like warfare and stuff like that in the world are not going to sit down and probably finish Attack on Titan.
Yeah.
But there's at least there's a lot of us who are growing up watching this kind of content, speaking these things and understanding how these cycles of war are and how do they arise. And if there is any shot at peace, how can we possibly get there? Right.
Yeah.
This anime, Attack on Titan, being able to kind of spark those kind of conversations, I think it's so valuable for this time. But hopefully what's going to happen in our timeline isn't, the freaking bombs dropping. That would be the worst. You know what I'm saying?
Dios mío.
Oh, and best of all, the very last scene of Attack on Titan with the credit is a boy walking up to a tree where Eren Yeager was buried. and now there's a new hole in this tree, like a cave opening.
Yeah.
Very similar to when Ymir first found the Titan powers. Almost like a complete loop throughout many generations, going right back to it. So not to say that Attack on Titan Part 2 is going to happen or anything like that. It's just another symbol showing these cycles. To remind you, these are the cycles of horrific things that humanity will do.
Yeah. Just the last thing I'll say, because you did bring that up about the whole cycles. Funny thing is, Ymir didn't choose to go into that tree. She was forced to go into the tree.
It's true. That's true.
While this person, with their own free will, enters the tree. So it's a loop, but it's different because of the what the person decides and the stuff surrounding them. Like I remember seeing that in like it's an explorer. Oh, and Ymir goes alone. This person goes with somebody. It's a dog.
Yep.
So I don't know, like that's already different, right? And
yep.
At the end of the day, I think the story is one of those that you'll rewatch over and over again, like old school anime. Like we've mentioned here before, like a lot of us will rewatch Dragon Ball Z, and Dragon Ball Z at this point is 30 years old. Like Full Metal Alchemist, I believe, is 15 years old, reaching almost 20, maybe more. And I'm thinking Brotherhood. Yeah, I'm thinking Brotherhood.
Yeah,
and like people will rewatch The Sopranos, The Wire, Breaking Bad. Like
Breaking Bad, yeah.
Like there's stories that just no matter when they're made, you're gonna rewatch them and it'll still be just as good. Like I watched Sopranos from end to end like 5 times, and every single time it's a little different. In every single time I learn something new, because 10 years ago when we started Attack on Titan, that it meant one thing. And now as older adults, we watch it again, it'll mean something else, especially now that we have children. Like, what does a show like Attack on Titan, what will that mean? Does that mean now we'll get to empathize with Aaron's dad? Like it's well, before we just didn't. It's
right.
But
kind of like how now I watch Malcolm in the Middle and I empathize with the dad in the show instead of the kids.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah.
You gotta watch a Malcolm in the Middle clip and you gotta see the dad, and it's just like, ay Dios mío, like with the
that's
dad
me.
now. That's me. Yeah. Oh my god. Anyways, again, 10 out of 10 anime. This anime is one of those where you don't have to be an anime fan to enjoy it. This is one that's perfectly written for anybody to be able to enjoy. Obviously, you got to be the age. I mean, you got to be the right age, not just like a child, because that's gonna be terrifying. But I think it's one of those where it's like, you have to go through the freaking feelings of seeing this kid who you think is the main character, this bright-eyed kid, lose that bright-eyedness and then become the villain, and then break your heart, and then you realize at the end of it all that there was no choice, and that was the way it had to be. And then it just kind of leaves you like, what? Why? And then, but through that question, you will realize, it's war and it's shitness.
All right, people. Well, that's it for today's special. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you, MasterRein, for the suggestion. This was definitely a little bit different. Remember to check out our latest pods, Remnant 2 review and our co-op pod that we just did. And also kind of on the same vein where we'll just chit chat with the boys, not necessarily about anything or something, we don't know yet, but it's going to be more free flowing. Also, damn, man, this pod has been going this is one of our longer pods.
This show.
So yeah, just remember to follow us on our social media. Check the links below. Remember to leave us a comment, and we're looking forward to the next time we come together and chat with you. This is SillySquirrel and MasterRein signing out.
Peace out, my friends.
And remember, never stop reviving. Peace.
Take care.